We're back with breaking news. Amidst the Iran war, President Trump raising prospects the U.S. may take aim at Cuba next after remarks at the Shield of the Americas summit today. MS Now White House reporter Akayla Gardner is in Doral, Florida for us. Akayla, welcome. So what did we hear from the president?
Alex, President Trump said today that Cuba is in its last moments of life as it currently functions. The country right now is in crisis after its two main sources of oil, both from Venezuela and Mexico, have been cut off as a result of U.S. intervention. That has caused economic activity on the island to essentially grind to a halt with devastating consequences for the people of Cuba. The president said he heard from at least 4 leaders today at the summit from mostly Latin American countries that they want him to, quote, take care of Cuba. Take a listen to the president in his own words.
We're also looking forward to the great change that will soon be coming to Cuba. Cuba's at the end of the line. They're very much at the end of the line. They have no money. They have no oil. They have a bad philosophy. They have a bad regime that's been bad for a long time. They want to negotiate, and they are negotiating with Marco and myself and some others. And I would think a deal would be made very easily with Cuba.
So our colleagues Jake Traylor and Carol Lenning are reporting that the Justice Department right now is exploring potential charges against some of the top leaders in Cuba. That could lead to a similar situation as we saw in Venezuela, where we saw the capturing of the former leader, Nicolas Maduro. But President Trump says his focus right now remains on the ongoing crisis in Iran. Alex.
Okay, Akayla Gardner, a busy day for you. Thank you so much for that. Let's bring in Peter Baker, MS Now contributor and chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Welcome, my friend. What's your reaction to what we just heard there?
Well, I mean, look, he is obviously rattling sabers and making threats. And the question is whether he follows through. And normally you might say, well, it's just bluster. It's just Trump talking. But what we've seen in the last month and a half with Venezuela and now Iran is that he's willing to use force to achieve his ends, and therefore nobody should rule anything out. Now, what that would look like, we don't know. What would be the goal? Again, hard to say. He's been so all over the place in terms of what he's trying to do in Iran. He hasn't been any clearer about what would happen in Cuba, but he certainly has gotten the attention of the people in Havana. No question about it that he has been able to, through the strangulation of their oil, put great pressure on the regime. And the question is whether or not there is a negotiated deal or whether this is going to come to some sort of use of force.
So right now, Trump is ramping up attacks on Iran, despite facing criticism over the war here at home. And you write, Peter, wars often lose public support over time. Trump started this one without much. How do you interpret the growing opposition? And is the White House phased by it at all?
Yeah, it's very striking. If you go back and look through the history of modern polling, every time a president has gone to war, every time the president's taken the country to war, he at least starts off with the support of the public, okay? Sometimes more, sometimes less, but more Americans have always supported the president in a time of a beginning war than not. This is the first time we've seen that be the opposite. He started off without support. The rally the president phase, Americans have to go ahead and skip right past that straight to the we don't want the war phase. And it's a mix of things. One, of course, is you have a president who hasn't done anything to prepare the country for war. He didn't explain in advance of opening the bombing why he was doing it, why the country should support it, and why it's important for American national interest. And he's done very little since starting the war as well. And we're also in a polarized era where everything is just, tribal. Everything is us versus them. It's hard for anybody to reach across party or ideological lines these days the way it was for previous presidents. And I also think it's just the exhaustion factor. Americans have been through this before. They've seen this before for the last 25 years. They're not eager for yet another overseas war.
Well, let's talk about how, to the degree it has, the administration has presented this war to Americans. Here's how, Peter. They've posted a barrage of social media posts about the military attacks using war video games and movie clips. And in a new interview with Time, Trump was asked whether Americans should be worried about retaliatory attacks at home. He responded, I guess, and then went on to say, in part, we think about it all the time. We plan for it. We expect some things. When you go to war, some people will die. What's with the cavalier tone? Is it affecting public perception of this war?
Well, I mean, it doesn't come across as the most serious way to approach it. When you use video game style videos out there, montages of movie clips and so forth to show how tough you are, it doesn't strike people as sober or traditionally serious. And I think that's offensive. Even I've heard from military officers who, they're the ones fighting this war. They're the ones who are seeing their colleagues, a handful of them now so far, a half dozen have died as a result, more may be dying. And it's not a game. It's not something to be chortling about. It's something to take seriously. It may be necessary. It may be the kind of thing the country has to do, but it's not, at least to people who do this for a living, it's not something to take lightly. And I think that we'll see the president today go to Dover for the return of the bodies of those who have been killed. I'm sure he'll take, I assume he'll take a more sober approach to that and demonstrate to the country, the heroism of these people who have died serving their country. But it's a weird mixed message at this point, not like we've seen previous presidents who took this stuff very seriously.
Yeah. Okay. Peter Baker, thank you, my friend. We'll see you next weekend. Appreciate you.